Hey guys, I'm doing point number 15 in our discussion of open air preaching. I just did 14 yesterday. I've been trying to keep these once a week, but after I did yesterday's, it just got me thinking, got my mind going, and I wanted to do another one to kind of balance out yesterday. It could almost be a part B from yesterday. The last point was being relational, being personable, engaging somebody. Like when you're preaching and you see somebody, maybe standing nearby and they're listening really well, or maybe they even have their hand up, not being afraid to engage them. So if you haven't seen that one, go back and watch that. And this one here, I've got it entitled, How Long to Engage a Person While Preaching. Because I got to thinking about that. Even had my good friend Ronnie Qualls text me about that, because this just happened to us at the bus station. Happens a lot when you're preaching. For example, how long do you engage somebody? And that's what I mean, guys, by there's myriads of circumstances. So in my previous video, I didn't want to make it sound like that you have to spend all of your time engaging people, because you can end up wasting a lot of time. The enemy can really distract you and keep the gospel from being preached. So, if you're out there preaching, so the different circumstances. First of all, it depends on if you have anybody with you. If I have somebody with me, I'm usually just depending on how the conversation goes. Let's say I'm preaching and I start to engage somebody, or ask them if they have a question. Mine, and this is where I want to balance out what I said last time. My number one priority while I'm there is to preach the gospel, so many people can hear the gospel. That's primary number one. And so if I have other people there, I will point people to speak with folks that we have down there. And again, so many things can happen. You could be engaged with somebody, and just depending on how it's going, if you're proclaiming the gospel while you're engaging the person, then yeah, keep preaching. Engage the person, but so everybody else can hear. That's fantastic, because it draws a crowd and these type of things. The story that I gave about Nancy, the prostitute, very seldom. There's just been a few times where I'll just turn my amp off and talk to somebody. That was a very, very special time where I felt like that was the right thing to do. I needed to spend time with her without an amp. But most of the time, even when I am engaging somebody and it's going good, I keep my amp on. I've had people say, hey, turn that off. No, I'm not turning it off, because I'm here to preach. And I want the other people to hear what we're talking about. And so how long to engage somebody? Well, again, you have to use discernment. Somebody comes up, they may start out with a good question, but if you sense that the conversation is becoming pointless and they're taking you down these different rabbit holes, has nothing to do with Christ, then that is, I just call that a satanic distraction. And so we have to know when to say, nope, I'm here to preach, and just start preaching the gospel. Or maybe direct them, if you want to talk further, you can go talk to so-and-so. If you're out there by yourself, just preach over. So like the other day at the bus station last week, Ronnie and myself, we both had that happen. He was preaching, and a Hebrew Israelite came up. Didn't know he was at first, but looked like it may be a decent conversation at first, but then you could tell, man, this was going nowhere, and was just a distraction to stop the gospel from being preached. So Ronnie was going back and forth with this guy, and I just looked up at Ronnie and said, man, just preach. And a little while later, when he got finished, I was preaching, and a heckler came up to me and wanted to argue with me about nonsense. And Ronnie said, brother, just preach. And so there's all kinds of different circumstances of how long to engage. And I'll engage somebody, even like with that guy the other day. I just started preaching, but I would still address him. But if you're going to do that, if you have somebody like that and they just won't leave and they just keep heckling, that's okay. That draws a crowd. But as long as you're the one keeping the conversation under control, meaning they're not dictating what's being said, you are as the preacher. So I don't mind. I like having those guys up there. And I'll say this, I don't know any other any better way to say it, I use them. I use them for the gospel. I engage with them. I respond to them. I respond to their foolishness with truth, with the gospel. So I think that just, again, we're going a little long. Again, this just opened up a lot of stuff in my thinking. I knew I was going to have to do another one to balance this out, because I didn't want to make it sound like, oh yeah, man, anytime somebody, has a question, you have to engage with them and shut the preaching down. That's not what I mean. Even when you're engaging, be preaching. Keep your amp on. Preach the gospel. Just keep it on the gospel. If you sense that, this is a waste of time, this is going nowhere, then get back to preaching. And so I've learned that the hard way. And so again, it all depends. My wife's told me many times. Somebody will come up and I'm, maybe I'm starting to get in the flesh and wanting to argue. And she just says, honey, just preach. And so we just have to remember that, guys. A lot more could be said about this, but that's really why I wanted to make this video, just because it was driving me nuts. I was like, I got to make another one to balance this out, because that happens all the time. Somebody comes up and wants to engage, you engage them, and it ends up being just an absolute, from the enemy wanting to shut the preaching of the gospel down. And by no means, don't ever let that happen. You are out there to preach Christ. You're out there to preach the gospel. So if you are going to engage with somebody, don't let them take you down one of the rabbit trails. You, the preacher, you're there, and you keep the conversation geared towards the gospel, geared towards the cross. I don't care how much, apologetical arguments you get in, whatever. Keep it on the gospel. Okay, if you sense yourself, man, and it's been a decent amount of times gone by, and you've gotten off the gospel, okay, it's time to get back on track. So I hope that all makes sense. Again, we went a little long, but I just thought this is kind of like part 2 of the last one, to kind of balance the whole conversation out. So anyway, that's usually the way this happens. I make a video, I think about things, and then I think of something else. So that's just kind of how it goes. So anyway, guys, God bless. I hope this helps. Hope this helps somebody.